Okay, last talent tier list until the new character comes out. Again, to say how I do these tier lists, I think about it in three aspects. First, how good is the talent on its own if you just take it with nothing else supporting it? Secondly, is when it has things supporting it, how much does it improve it? Does it become a lot better when it has a few talents that bolster it up? And then lastly is, what order would you want it if you were taking it? Is it a level 2, 3, 4 talent that you want for faster clear speeds, or is it more of a level 7, 8, 9 just take because it'll do something for you but not a whole lot type take? And then lastly, the starting talents have a bit more competition with each other, as you can only have one of them through a run, where the rest with good RNG you could hopefully get the rest of them. Now, starting talents with Melusine are interesting because she's one of the best characters in the game, but she probably has the worst set of 4 starting talents. Like Deep Beat, for example, this is the first one I'm going to talk about. Every 4 attacks you hit, you do like a wave burst that hits all enemies in your sing stance area, and it does basically equivalent to 1 attack damage to all those enemies. That sounds really cool. It sounds like good AoE. I find that the average amount of attacks you get off with Melusine before you need to move is 3. So a lot of times you end up taking damage if you're going to do this. And if you are taking 4, then you might be set up far enough away that you aren't hitting a whole bunch of enemies, so it's not worth it. Also, sometimes it triggers enemies outside of camps depending on where your sing stance is, so it might just make you fight more things. And Melusine's attack build really is not all that. I think Deep Beat would be a much better talent if it wasn't one of her starting talents, because I think it would be so much better if it could combine with Sea Dance, where that lets you teleport and stay in your sing stance, letting you get Deep Beat off more often. But yeah, her attack build really isn't all that. This is, I think, a talent that everyone really wants to like, but when you use it just in practicality, you don't feel like it's doing a whole lot. Again, I just think Melusine's attack build in general is very, very underwhelming compared to most of her other builds. And I think it's one of the most underwhelming attack builds, like maybe just besides Geppetto, whose attack build isn't really, focused on him. Now, Bewitching Song, this is actually an interesting one because when you enter Sing Stance, it just instantly applies weak to everything around you. This is okay in single player. Weakness makes enemies do 25% less damage. I prefer Spring Water to that for the healing, because you can focus yourself on your own healing and you notice healing a lot more than you notice enemies doing less damage to you. Like, your brain doesn't really get to process as much as, oh, that would have hit me for this amount, but now it's hitting me for this amount because it's applying weak. But I think this is her best co-op talent. I think if you're playing in co-op and you're playing like 2 to 4 people, the amount of damage overall in an entire run that you will reduce compared to what these other starting talents will do for you, I think is so much more beneficial. And weak isn't really a common status effect in the game. Not a lot of other characters get it, and this is such an easy application of it. It'll probably always be up. I don't think it's S tier as in a, whoa, this is so good and you need to take it. Again, if this is solo play, then I also put this like down here. But I think it's S tier for its co-op potential, because I think it is the only talent you really should be taking in co-op. I mean, you could take some of the other talents, but I think this is the most beneficial to your team. Now, Sea Dance is the only talent that actually does have S tier potential for her starting, and it's not like it's even that amazing. The reason it's up here is because it does help synergize with other things. It also gives you a bit of an iframe. Basically, you can teleport to where your Wisp is and stay in Sing Stance, so you don't have to leave it. That is helpful for things like this talent, I'm forgetting the name right now, Shimmering Scales. It's helpful for just like a few talents, and it lets you get more damage off. It's also an iframe, and then it heals you a little bit. And that's also really cool because she has 2 starting healing talents. I do prefer this one just in general because you can get a lot of use out of this throughout an entire run. And like the movement tech of it is really, really nice, and not to be like understated how valuable that is. Now, Spring Water, this was actually recently nerfed. It used to heal you like 7 health per enemy hit, and like the amount of times it was hit. It's got nerfed recently. Let me see if they actually updated this. Yeah, it's 2 health, and then you get to upgrade it by 0.5. It's not as much healing as it was before, but there are things like Backwash to make it count more healing, and Tidal Wave to make it wider to hit more enemies. I don't think it's as good as it used to be. It's not a bad healing talent. And again, in solo play, I would take this before Bewitching Song, because, being like more selfish with your healing, it does heal your teammates in co-op, but it is just a little more circumstantial than this applying weakness to everyone, and you're like guaranteeing that it's a 25% less damage to enemy attacks, where this, you're not guaranteeing the healing all the time. It's okay. Like, again, before the nerf it was probably up here, but after the nerf I don't think I don't prefer it to Sea Dance, and that's the main reason for it. Now, Freezing Splash, this makes your power, the range is wider, and it applies chill to enemies. The chill to enemies, like, this isn't one of the immediate power takes. There's other things you want before that. But the chill is actually really beneficial in how much it slows enemies down, because as Melusine, you have to stand still when you're attacking for the most part. And this just allows you to attack longer, get your cooldowns, use things more often, and leave your sync stance less often, keeping your DPS up. So I do really like it for that. And also, if you're playing with Snow Queen, it is just cool for her having another character or having another form of chill for Snow Queen able to be active. It's a good talent. I don't know, I'm like really teetering on A or B. It's mainly B tier in my mind because to me, this is one of those like prime examples of a level 6, 7, 8, 9 talent that I would want. I would want everything else on the power build before this, but it's not bad. It's just because there's so many things beforehand. Now, Protective Flow, this is a weird one. Your attack, when you pass over an enemy, it gives them shield. I think when you have this for yourself, I think because the attack basically is right in front of you and comes out of you, it gives you shield every time you use it. So, I mean, you could look at it in that way, take like a bunch of fairy dust and have your shield just be pretty hefty before you start attacking. Maybe take something like Shimmering Scales and just try to get a bunch of attack and shield on yourself. I just don't think shield's that important in this game. Like her other healing talent, I would probably take before this because, you know, that's just more heals overall, where this is, I don't know, it's kind of weird to play with. In co-op, I still don't even think I'd really value it that much. If you're playing with some melee characters like Wukong and Scarlet, then you might get a lot more out of it, and like Beowulf, but I don't find shield talents to be that necessary if they don't provide something else like Pied Piper's Sound Barrier or Beowulf's Battle Cry. So Underwater Predation, this is when you use your defense, you can hold it for longer and like swim under enemies and make them vulnerable, and then you get to extend how long vulnerable lasts. This is one of the weaker vulnerables in my mind because say there's like 6 enemies and you want to apply vulnerable to all of them, you go underwater and you have to swim under all of them. The first one you applied vulnerable to, if you don't have this all the way upgraded, by the time you come up, you might be able to get like 1 attack off before they're no longer vulnerable. With it upgraded, yeah, it's all right. Single target, like for bosses, again, this is really good, but it's more so just that the animation takes a long time for you to also come up, that I feel like you don't get your full worthwhileness out of this. It is a vulnerable talent, so I'm still tempted to put it into S tier, but I just think it's not as good as the other vulnerable talents that some other characters have, because it's just not the immediate vulnerable into attacking. Again, this is another one. I really like this at a level 6, 7, 8, 9 in most builds, but level 1 or 2 or 3, especially when I don't have the money to upgrade it, I would really just prefer it later. Backwash, this talent makes your special hit twice. Basically the wave goes forward and then it comes back and hits again for like 65% of your special's damage. I think you get to upgrade that for 50%, and yeah, and then you get to upgrade it by 15% each time. 15% is pretty good upgrading it. Again, it's not ever going to do the full damage of your special, but it will get pretty close. This is really good because there's things like Tidal Wave where you make your special bigger so you can try to make this hit more enemies, and then Water Communion, which makes your special already hit harder so that extra hit that's on its way back can basically do the damage of a regular special. There's also things like Waterlogging, which I don't think this is that great of a talent, but it helps you get more waterlogging stacks. I think this just has a lot of things that it combines with. Again, like Spring Water for more healing, that I think it's S tier. I think it's probably the bottom of S tier. It is a good damage buff. If you are going a special build, you do probably want this as, you want Water Communion as your level 2, but you want this as your level 3 for sure. So it is a good talent. I do think it is highly rated up there. The special build is really strong. It's not as immediate and spammable as her power build just because of how I think you should play this with Water Communion, but it is really good. And it also applies a lot of stagger to enemies, and I think that's one of the biggest factors of it is elites. Elites and crabs, you can just knock them over pretty easily with this. Power Dive, this is an S tier talent. When you use your defense, you now apply a power at the spot of where your defense was activated. A couple reasons why this is an S tier. First off, it makes your defense now be a scalable source of damage, where you upgrade your power, you are affecting your power's damage, and now your defense's damage. You affect your damage number, all of your damage, and now your defense gets to be affected by that number. So your overall DPS and like just how much damage you constantly have available to you is a lot higher. There's also a lot of things it combines with. Aftershock, Geyser, Freezing Splash. It's like a lot of benefit just from one talent on what it can be applied to. She also has some other good defensive talents that can just make your defense overall hit like a truck. The other thing is, it is the most broken thing in the world if you get Baylor's Eye and a bunch of power charges, because now never use your power, just use your defense, and your defense will benefit from however many power charges you have stacked, and it will just delete everything. I have a build like that. It's called like the best build I've ever had or something. It's a Melusine video. You can check that out. In Avalon, this literally just deletes everything. This is probably the best talent in the game to stack with Baylor's Eye. It's like up there with Beowulf Secondary Tremors, and it's up there with Pied Piper and Music of the Spheres with his Power Dash. Yeah, this is a very, very good talent. Now, Tidal Wave, this makes your wave hit further and it makes it a bit wider. You get to upgrade that. You know, every upgrade will increase that. It's not as immediately as important as something like Backwash or Water Communion, as these upgrade your damage. This can inherently upgrade your damage by making the area wider, letting you hit more things, but I feel like you already have a pretty good ability to hit a lot of enemies with Melusine Special, especially with these two, that this is one of those things where, yeah, if I'm going special build, I want this level 2, this level 3, and this level 4. But if this doesn't come until level 6, 7, 8, 9, I'm really not that pressed. I would like to see it, but it's not the most immediately necessary thing. I think it is a good talent, but again, it's if you miss it in the special build, it's not like it's going to be a huge impact to the game. Like, you'll still be okay without it, but it is a good talent. Okay, Aftershock, this makes your power, it's very similar to Backwash. It makes your power basically able to trigger another power after it hits. So it hits and then it's a certain percent of the damage. I don't know exactly. Okay, Aftershock. Power leaves a water core at the casting location and triggers a power again after 1.5 seconds for 40% of its damage. You get to upgrade how much damage that's going to be. So it's not as strong as your power, but it gets to stack. Oh, here it is. It gets to stack with everything that you get for your power. So you take Power Dive. You're now making Power Dive stronger when you take this. You get Geyser. Geyser now gets the proc twice, and if it's right in the center of the enemy, this hits really hard. Freezing Splash, I mean, technically the enemies are already going to be chilled, but you just get to reapply chilled if it happen to miss an enemy. And it gets the benefit from the range of Freezing Splash, so it can hit enemies in a wider radius. This is another S tier talent. These two, like, kind of go hand in hand and just make the power build kind of nuts. You do really want Geyser with it as well, but yeah, these are really good talents for scaling your damage. Melusine does have a lot of S tier talents. I think she has some of the best talents in the game, but she also, in my mind, has some of the most like meh talents as well. So this is, what is it called? It's Submerging Attack. Attack increases its damage by 8% for each enemy hit up to 6 hits to 48%. You get to upgrade that by 1, and then resets if Melusine takes damage or exits Sing Stance. This combines with Sea Dance pretty well because you get to stay in your Sing Stance and keep attacking, and you don't have to leave it, like you don't have to dash away from an enemy and then re-trigger this, so you get to keep your stacks up a bit. It combines with Wisp Surge really well, as you get to increase your Wisp attack speed and get those stacks a lot quicker. It also combines with Enduring Wisp, so if you leave your Sing Stance and you have like multiple hits of this, it can stack itself while you are outside of Sing Stance, which is cool. Again, the main thing is it does combine with Deep Beat too, so if you are getting that increase when Deep Beat triggers, it will be at higher damage. This is probably one of her better attack talents, but it's just, again, the fact that her attack build is very underwhelming. I think this might be, in my opinion though, the best attack talent because it does benefit from all of these so much, where some of the other talents don't. So I might say it's A tier. It'll probably help your attack build the most because if you have a bunch of Ace of Spades, how this damage is going to scale is pretty good. If you get it with Waterlogging as well, it's pretty decent. I don't think Waterlogging, right here, I don't think Waterlogging is that good of a talent. It's okay. If you really like her attack build, then you probably really love this. I, for one, just am not that attached to her attack build. So this is Geyser. Your power does 50% more damage at the center of its location. Again, combines with Power Dive, combines with Aftershock. I think Freezing Splash makes its radius slightly bigger, not by much, but slightly. This is, again, another S tier talent in my mind. I would prefer Aftershock and Power Dive beforehand just because these can scale with other things and it lets you like double scale Geyser. It also does a pretty good amount of stagger damage. These two together, and again, these three, your power is now basically triggering 4 times. Again, at reduced damage the second hit, but it's just one of the coolest builds. It's one of the most fun builds, just being able to apply damage, basically having damage multiply with each other with all these different sources of damage, and then taking power damage and getting the crit from that, and now having both of these trigger and being able to crit, and with just your regular damage number stacking up, this build just becomes a lot of damage. The investment is these, and you already have a really good build. So I really like this talent. Again, I would say it is the level 3 talent that you would want in the power build. Maybe, I don't know, you'd probably actually want before Power Dive, you'd probably want Aftershocks, then Power Dive, then this at level 4. So yeah, I think it's very valuable. I think it's an S tier. Her power build is also really strong. So this is Water Communion. Your defense clears your specials cooldown, which is just a buff that or like an added thing that I don't even think it needed. And then your next special within 3 seconds does 40% more damage, and you get to upgrade that damage. The fact that it clears your special cooldown lets you take Nightmare Ichor for free and pretty much not have to worry about it. You can invest in defense cooldown instead of special cooldown because every time you use your defense, you're going to have your special. It also lets you use Baylor's Eye. It doesn't prevent special charges from being consumed, but it helps you get your special charges back quicker if you have multiple charges. This hits really hard. Combine this with Backwash as well, and this hits really hard. Combine it with something like Underwater Predation and make sure you're hitting them with Vulnerable. This is, I kind of like it more than some of her power talents for how hard it ends up hitting, but I think just all these combined are better than this, and this combined. So I'm going to leave these ahead of it. I really, really love this talent. I love this special build. Lets you play super aggressive. It lets you also take, because you want to be using your defense a lot, it lets you just take things like Power Dive, Aftershock, and Geyser as a pretty fundamental part of the build. Lets you focus on like Razer Tail as well. Really, really like this talent. This is by far one of her best talents. So this is Razor Tail. When you use your defense, you hit enemies for 400% of your attack damage. You get to upgrade that by 100% each time. Honestly, her attack build, like, this is the hardest hitting part of it. This is the best part of it. This talent hits really, really hard. I think it's up here in A tier. The reason being is I think there's already a bunch of defensive incentive things for you to take that just adding this extra damage is not a bad idea. Again, like Underwater Predation, Power Dive, Water Communion, all things affected by your defense that make your defense better. And then, yeah, this is good damage. If you are going the attack build, I feel like you're going to find the most damage out of this. Like, you're going to want to save this for the elite enemies and like the heavy hitters. This is a really good talent. It's not like it synergizes with a whole bunch of things. It's just, hey, your defense doesn't attack, but it's a very, very good attack. So this is Soothing Presence. While in combat, you passively heal 4 health every 5 seconds, and it also heals all the heroes next to you. This is why people think that Melusine is like a healer and like a tank class. Again, she has things like Shimmering Scales, but this is probably one of the best healing talents because it's not like a, hey, move your, I know this is shield, but like move your Wisp over the enemies. It is just always active while you're in combat. Again, if you're taking mermaid tiers, you're going to be doing quite a lot of healing. If you have something like Holy Grail as well, you're going to just be a really good support for your team, but Melusine has so much potential for damage that you're going to be a support with a lot of damage. This is not a bad talent at all. It's co-op potential. I would definitely put it up here. In regular like solo play, I don't think you need it as much. I think I'd probably place it right around here. I would prefer it in my build than going with Spring Water, but I think because of its co-op potential, it's definitely an A tier talent. It's probably like the top 2 like healing talents in the game. It might be the best healing talent in the game. Again, just because it's always active. It's like having Queen of Hearts, but active in combat. So yeah, really, really beneficial. If your teammates are stacking armor, then they'll also get more out of this. So overall, generally a good talent. Wisp Surge. So after using your special for the next 3 seconds, your attacks gain bonus 40% speed. And then, yeah, you don't affect the time. I wish you affected the time, like the attack speed for 7 seconds when you had it fully upgraded, not the actual attack speed. Combines well, again, with Ace of Spades if you get the 4-stack. It's underwhelming to me. You can attack very fast. It helps you get Deep Beat procced more often. Again, I just don't think Deep Beat's that good. I think it's better than Deep Beat because you can use it in some builds like Sea Dance build and you don't need Deep Beat for it. It helps you get Submerging attacks stacked quicker. It's just that the attack build feels so underwhelming to me that I really don't value it that much. Okay, this is Waterlogging. I'm just going to read it because it's a little weird. Wisp gains 2 growth charges for each wave of special that it hits, up to a maximum of 12 charges. Each charge increases the damage of the attack by 20%, with each attack consuming 1 charge. This is best way to get a lot of attack damage because, you know, if you think at 12 charges, that's 12 times 20. But for that 1 attack and each time a charge is going to fall off. This makes your attack hit the hardest. There are ways to play with this. Again, the easiest way is to go into Sing Stance so your Wisp is right in front of you and then use your special so that it is just getting all of those stacks. If you have Backwash, it now gets to double up on those stacks, making them stack quicker. If you have Enduring Wisp, you can play where you set your Wisp out and whatever it's attacking, you just try to use your special on it and get the stacks that way. It's, again, some people probably really like this, like it might be here. It's probably better than this for overall damage if you're really consistent with it. I think it makes you have to focus too much on what you're doing in the play of making sure you are getting your waterlogging stacks. And if you miss your special, which is kind of easy to do, then you're not getting the benefit of this. So I don't like it as much. And I think while it is the way to get the most out of the Melusine attack build, I think there's so much that you need to be focusing on now with Melusine and your attack build on, hey, I'm using a special so my attack can attack faster, but the special needs to hit this waterlogging thing. Oh, I need to stay in my Sing Stance, so I'm hitting all of these attacks. I don't know, there's a lot going on where Melusine actually asks for a lot more movement than what's necessary. Again, if you're taking Deep Beat, you're not going to want to leave the Sing Stance. If you're taking Sea Dance, now you also have to focus on Sea Dance and when should you use it. I just think her other builds are a lot more stress-free, and this has you focus on a lot of things and not in an enjoyable way to me. Like I really like Aladdin, which has you focus on a lot of things. This is just more like, oh no, I'm not getting my full stacks of waterlogging and I'm messing up with this. Now I'm getting hit by enemies because I'm too focused on getting my stacks. Yeah, I don't enjoy playing her attack build. So this is Final Burst. After getting 3 successful attacks, when you leave your stance, your attack will, or like your Wisp will blow up doing a burst of damage, and you get to upgrade that damage. It doesn't scale off attack, it just scales off your damage, but it does an amazing amount of stagger. If you're not going the power build, and if you're not going the special build and you want to go her attack build, even though it has like some not negative synergy, but like weird synergy with enduring Wisp and stuff, and like deep beat, you want to get 4 hits. The most efficient way is to just get 3 hits and then trigger it. This is one of her best starting talents. Like as a level 2 talent, this is one of the best ones. You just do so much AoE damage like right away. You can just flat out kill the ghouls if they're not corrupted. It's really, really good damage, and it lets your clear speeds like right away. This is probably the best talent for your clear speeds right off the bat. So definitely a S tier talent. It's just more so the fact that it doesn't synergize with anything, where all of these have really, really good synergies, and this is just like a solo on its own type talent. Now during Wisp, this after you leave Sing Stance, your Wisp can still go around and attack. It's cool because yeah, it affects with Submerging attacks, it still affects with Wisp Surge and Waterlogging. I don't really like this. I did a build where I tried to have a auto attack build where I got all of those, and I would just focus on hitting this with Waterlogging. I had it attack on its own. It was decent. One of the things this also does a lot though is when you leave a camp, if you had your Wisp out, it might just go off and attack another enemy and put you into combat. So like if you're trying to sneak shards or something, or teleport, you might screw yourself with this. It's really cool. I really, really like that this is added in the game because it just opens up a lot of elements of her attack build. I just kind of hate it. I really, really hate it. It's fun to a sense, but I just don't like playing this way. It's kind of gimmicky. It's cool. It lets you focus on things like your defense and stuff while you are still getting passive damage off. So it's not bad per se. It's just really not my favorite. Again, you can see a theme here. All of her attack talents, I just don't vibe with as much. Now, Shimmering Scales. This is a weird one. The longer you stay in Sing Stance, you gain armor over time. There are really niche like Lucky or Bloody Mary's Mirror where you could flip the armor to attack damage and just try to have this do more attack as you stay in it longer, and take it with Sea Dance so you can teleport around, or just stack it with like Dragon Hide and try to get damage out of it that way with Sea Dance. Fundamental aspect of it though is just weird to me because you only get the armor, like it resets every time. You only get the armor as you're in Sing Stance for a long amount of time. And the reason you would want the armor is so that you can stay there attacking and tank some hits. But it's like, in my mind, even with the armor, you don't want to take the hits. And if you're playing a Nightmare where, you know, enemies might be hitting a bit harder and stuff, or like more of them might be corrupted, yeah, you really just don't want to take the hits. It's a weird dichotomy of like, hey, cool, you're bulkier, but just in general in this game, it's not worth it to pretty much ever get hit. I think it's a C tier talent. I understand there are some really, really niche cases of this being really cool and being able to flip the damage on it, but in most builds, I don't think it's worth it. Now, the last talent, and it's a good one, is Water Bubble. Another defense talent, so she has a lot that goes into that. After a defense is triggered, Melusine is surrounded by a bubble for 4 seconds, absorbing 1 instance of damage. Then the bubble explodes and deals 60% area damage. That's a lot of damage and a lot of stagger, especially at like a level 2 talent. If you're standing in the middle of a group, like take the hit intentionally, yeah, you're going to do a lot of damage there. It also just only pops after 4 seconds, so it's not that bad. I also think it's amazing. I would put it maybe like right here. No, probably right here. The amount of damage that this can also absorb for you in a run, like the amount of hits that you won't have to heal off because you had Water Bubble, and you could also play into Water Bubble, is almost better than taking armor sometimes. Because again, it's a guaranteed negation of damage, no matter how much damage it is. If it's one of those knights doing like a Michael Jordan slam dunk on you with a sword, it can just absorb all that damage and return it back. That can be so crucial in saving you in so many moments. I think it's such a good talent, especially if you're doing challenge runs and you have like reduced healing and stuff like that. The amount of damage that it can just negate for you that you don't have to heal back is so beneficial. So Water Bubble definitely goes up here. Yeah, Melusine has some of the most S tier talents in my mind, but she also just has a lot of meh talents that I just don't think are really worth using. I don't know if she really has a D tier. Like I could put one of these in D tier, I think, but I understand there are some use cases out of them. And this is a decently easy shield ability to activate, especially in co-op. So I don't think it's terrible. But yeah, there is the final talent tier list until Carmilla comes out, and I'll have to play with that character quite a bit before I make a tier list like this so I can really know all the synergies and everything. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the tier list series. If you haven't seen the rest of them, they are in a playlist on my channel, so feel free to check that out, and peace.